Whoa, holy shit, he isn't dead. He's back with another video. I know, big fucking sub count over here. But I just wanted to say real quick to whatever subs I kept waiting, my bad. I know it's been about like 4 months since I've uploaded anything, but my life's been crazy busy as of late, and between 2 jobs and an animation course I'm enrolled in right now, I've barely had time to write the script for this video, let alone actually record it. Also, on the topic of recording, I'm actually recording my own voice instead of epic cinematic music and iMovie text. And hey, look at that, an avatar. No commentator channel's ever done that before. What a bold move. Anyway, I plan to make my future videos follow this layout. I'm also planning on putting up more tutorial videos and less shit posts. Anyway, enough of that, let's get into the actual video. So, you want to make your SFM artworks look better. Welcome to this SFM guide. There's a lot to cover in this guide, and I won't be going over the basics. So if you don't know how to use SFM at all, I'd recommend watching a beginner's tutorial. There's a million of them out there.
Meow?
So, real quick, cameras. Very important stuff. Now, first things first. Never use bloom scale, ever. Normal bloom is good, SFM bloom is terrible. Bloom scale is generally considered a cardinal sin among experienced SFM users. While we're on the topic of camera settings, we should probably talk about AO, or ambient occlusion. Another thing experienced SFM users tend to say is that ambient occlusion is not good, at least in SFM, and that's kind of true. The purpose of ambient occlusion is to create shading based on how close models are to each other. And SFM does that, however, it is also very generous with the ambient occlusion. So, as a rule of thumb, I like to say that if it's indoors, you should have ambient occlusion turned on, probably. But if it's outdoors, you might want to experiment with turning ambient occlusion off entirely. I also just wouldn't recommend messing with the ambient occlusion sliders in camera settings. Just don't do that. Next up is field of view. Now, if you've seen, really bad SFM artworks, one thing that a lot of them have in common is that they have really high field of view when there's nothing going on. So high field of view is not bad per se, it's more that it's meant for action-packed scenes. Also, you can use field of view to cover up barren scene builds. This picture right here is very bare bones for a scene build. It's just trees and a ground. So basically, low field of view gives you a more cinematic view. Next is composition. Whenever you're making your art, always be thinking about your composition. Think of your canvas like a scale. It should all feel reasonably balanced. Not too much on one side, not too much on the other. For example, what's wrong with this image here? There's way too much empty space on the right, while the left side is fully occupied by our subject. So how do we fix this? Boom, props. Which brings us to scene building.
Do not bully people.
Spoiler alert, eventually the only map you'll be using is Black Void. I can't tell you how many times I've seen beginners use TF2 maps for their OC artworks. I get it, it's super easy to just boot up 2Fort and spawn in your models. But if you're looking to make artwork outside of a loadout showcase, it isn't gonna cut it. Especially if you're going for an image that doesn't fit the art style. So, what is a scene build? Well, a scene build is like a map, but put together from scratch using nothing but props. For example, this ground over here is 250 separate models. Needless to say, copy and paste is gonna be your best friend here. So, how do you scene build? Well, first of all, you're going to need good prop models. So go ahead and clear 50 gigabytes of space because I've got some links for you containing nothing but the highest quality props out there. The Scene Build Mega Pack and the Crazy Knife Terrain Pack. Now, you might disagree with me because you can cobble Left 4 Dead props together to make a realistic scene build, but it's my opinion that these packs are a must for anyone looking to make realistic, compelling artworks. That being said, these downloads are huge and contain thousands of photorealistic props, so please make a separate mod for this and drop all of that scene build stuff in there. Don't just put it in user mod. Once you've done that, take some time to get familiar with the pack, see what you can find, and if there's any models that really catch your eye. Now, for actually scene building, you're going to need to have an idea of what you're going for. The final product might differ from what you had in mind, and that's fine, but you don't want to spend hours copying and pasting props only to realize that you don't like what you're making. So, in summary, have good props. Get good. Also, check the Gmod workshop. There's tons of good models there. You do have to wade through heaps of shit to get to them, but there's some gems on there. You can get the Gmod models into SFM using this website. So once you have the models you need, it really just comes down to visual fuckery. It doesn't have to look good from every angle, and it definitely doesn't have to be a complete build. You don't have to make an entire city. All you have to do is create a city from the viewer's viewpoint. And that's pretty much all I can really say about scene building. It mostly just comes down to how much experience you have with creating believable environments. So if you want to get good at scene building, you just gotta practice.
Riding in a minecart, diamonds in my e-chest.
Oh god, here comes the long part of the tutorial. Okay, so you've got a good scene build, and now you need to light it. So let's talk about 3-point lighting. Don't throw a single light on your model and call it quits. It's unappealing and you can do way better. Start by throwing a single light behind your character so that the outline is illuminated. I'd recommend turning shadow filter size and shadow attenuation all the way down. This is your rim light. Next, spawn a light to the side of the character. Position it so that it really draws out the shadows of one half of the model. That is the key light. Finally, throw a light all over that shadowy dark area and make that light really low intensity. Disable shadows and boom, there's your fill light. So, there you have it, 3-point lighting. Anyway, let's toss all that out the window for a moment because we're going to be lighting an environment. First, start by making an ambient light. This is the thing that I haven't seen many tutorials talk about. It's something that a lot of people don't really think about. Shadows aren't actually black, they're the color of the sky essentially. If the sky is blue, your shadows are blue. If it's purple, your shadows are purple. This is because the sky is a light source. So let's replicate this in SFM. Start by creating a light and disabling shadows. Scroll down to far Z and max dist and beef those bad boys up all the way to 20k. Turn on constant attenuation. You're going to want to turn down the intensity a ton. I always like to remap the intensity to a max of 10 and a default of 0 so that I have finer control over it. Bring your light as high up to the sky as you can. Make sure it covers the entire scene build. Now, go down to color and make it the color of your sky. In this example, my lights will be blue. Now that you've found the right color to match your sky, you're going to want to turn down the intensity a ton. Lastly, turn your radius slider all the way up to the max. I know that sounds like a lot to remember, but do it enough times and you'll get the hang of it no problem. Now, you just want to copy and paste the light 4 times so that it covers top, right, left, back, and front. You should get something that looks like this. Now, select all of those ambient lights, right-click, and select Group Selected Tags. Name it ambient, just general housekeeping. Now you can finally get into the environment lights. For the sun, you might find it easiest to just copy the first ambient light, enable shadows, turn down radius, and work from there. If it's midday in your art, I'd recommend a white light. Now you might notice that despite having shadows enabled, the sun isn't casting shadows. Easy fix. Just go down to shadow filter and shadow attenuation and turn those down to 0, and shadows should appear. So, there's your sun. Now here's the advanced bits. I want you to do a quick experiment. Take out your phone and turn on your flashlight. Now hold your finger over it. See how it glows red? That's subsurface scattering, or SSS. It's basically light shining through something. Now remember to make this very subtle if the light source is more subtle, like sunlight. Create a light, disable shadows, and bring it close to your character's ear. Now turn down that field of view until it covers nothing but the ear. Next, you make that light red. Well, red with a hint of orange. Now turn down the intensity a bunch. Keep messing with this light until the SSS is just right. Remember, if the first thing someone notices about your poster is the subsurface scattering, you probably did it wrong. This is a subtle detail, not a red spotlight. Once you feel it's done, copy it to the other ear, and there you are. Want to go a step further? Want to make your lighting look amazing? Let's talk about bounce lights. Light bounces off of things, but surfaces like metal are going to reflect lights more than surfaces like wood. So let's say I've got this sandy clay floor here. The sun casting down on the ground is pretty intense since it's midday, so that light is going to bounce off the ground and onto any objects near the ground. Again, just like SSS, if the first thing someone notices about your art piece is bounce lights, you probably did it wrong. Make the light the color of whatever your light is reflecting off of. In this case, that's the ground. And that's pretty much all. Make sure you disable shadows to conserve your shadowed lights, and just cover whatever needs to be covered with the light.
Oh my god! No! Don't do it! No! He fell off the fucking building!
Okay, so this is just a totally different beast. I'm not going to go over the entirety of how to create strong, compelling poses because that's a whole different video on its own. I'm planning on doing a tutorial on posing sometime later on, and maybe, just maybe, an updated animation tutorial, seeing as how my last one's a little dated. Now, I may as well cover the basics on how to make a cookie-cutter movie poster pose while I'm here. Lock the head's rotation. Rotate the root to either side. There you go. The endangered violin. Yeah.
You're gonna smoke weed now? How could you be such an idiot?
Alright, so some things that don't really fit anywhere else in this tutorial, but I still feel like they matter. Look at these two images. Spot the differences between the two? No, not sex or armor. Look at how dead this person looks. She looks emotionless, and it's all in the eyes. Now, most SFM models have this feature by default that gives them this eye glint here. However, you can apply this eye glint to things that aren't technically eyes, like for example a robot's optic. You can see here how emotionless this robot looks. He looks like just another killing machine. What we can do to fix this is place a light right on his eye. Disable shadows, turn down the intensity, copy and paste it to the other eye, and look at that. Look at what we've done to him. What a good boy. Another thing about lights, Gobo light textures. This lets you put overlay textures on lights. Just right click on a light and type in Gobo. This will basically give you your light texture or fake shadows. I'm gonna be real, you're probably not gonna use this too much, but the few times you do need it, it can be really useful. Next up, volumetric fog. If an object is far off in the distance, it's going to be shrouded in fog. Typically, the further away a model is, the thicker the fog will be. Also note that the fog should be the color of the sky. Just create a volumetric light and make it really long range, like your ambient lights. Turn down noise intensity and make the volumetrics dimmer, depending on how far away your model should appear. Remember, the thicker the fog, the bigger the object will appear. And finally, remember when I said don't use SFM bloom? Well, there's a way you can fake your own bloom using volumetrics. Just create a low intensity volumetric, turn down the noise strength to 0, and position it over the light source. Then aim the light at the camera. Also, disable shadows. So, that's about everything. If you have any questions, please let me know in the comments. I'll be more than happy to answer them because this is my first tutorial. Ignore these two, they don't count. So I apologize in advance if it's all over the place. I'll try to be more organized in the future. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Go make an artwork.